The rain hammered against the taxi window like accusations I couldn't answer. My hands trembled as I counted the cash again, wet bills sticking together, 340 euros. Everything I'd managed to grab from the emergency fund hidden in my grandmother's cookbook before Gregor came home early. I pressed my palm against the cool glass, watching Milan's lights blur into watercolor streaks. Behind me, somewhere in that sprawling cityscape, was the apartment I'd shared with him for 18 months, the place where his love had slowly curdled into obsession, where compliments became criticisms, where care became control. Signorina, the driver's voice pulled me back. We're here. The Hotel Artemisia rose before us like a fortress of glass and steel, its elegant facade illuminated by golden lights that seemed to promise sanctuary. Too expensive. Far too expensive for someone fleeing with a hastily packed bag and 300 euros, but that was precisely the point. Gregor would never think to look for me somewhere like this. I paid the driver with trembling fingers, overpaying in my haste to escape the exposed feeling of being visible on the street. The lobby embraced me with warmth, scented of leather and sandalwood, a stark contrast to the cold rain outside. My sneakers squeaked against marble floors that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. The night receptionist, an elegant woman in her 50s with silver-streaked hair, assessed me with practiced discretion. I knew what she saw, a 26-year-old woman in jeans and a soaked jacket, mascara likely smudged from crying in the taxi, carrying a duffel bag that screamed desperation rather than vacation. Good evening. How may I assist you? I need a room. My voice came out steadier than I felt. Just for tonight. She consulted her computer, her expression revealing nothing. We have a standard room available for 280 euros. Nearly everything I had. But what choice did I have? I couldn't go to friends. Gregor knew them all. My family was in Verona, too far to reach tonight, and the women's shelter. I'd called them twice in the past month, always hanging up before they answered, unable to admit I needed help. I'll take it. As I counted out the bills, my phone buzzed. My stomach clenched before I even looked. Gregor, where are you? Gregor. Valentina, this isn't funny. Come home. Gregor, I know you're upset, but we can talk about this. Gregor, don't make me come looking for you. The last message made my hands shake so badly I nearly dropped the phone. The receptionist's eyes flickered to the screen before returning to professional neutrality. Is everything all right, signorina? I forced a smile that felt like cracking porcelain. Fine, just a long day. She handed me a key card, her gaze lingering on my face with something that might have been understanding. Room 412. The elevators are to your right. If you need anything at all during your stay, please don't hesitate to call the desk. The emphasis on anything felt deliberate. A lifeline extended without questions asked. Thank you. The elevator ride felt eternal. My reflection in the mirrored walls showed a stranger, pale, hollow-eyed, hair plastered to her skull. When had I become this person? The vibrant art student who'd laughed easily and trusted freely seemed like someone from another lifetime. Room 412 was simple but immaculate. Cream walls, dove-gray bedding, a small desk by the window overlooking the rain-soaked city. I locked the door, engaged the deadbolt, dragged a chair under the handle for good measure. Only then did I allow myself to breathe. The shower was almost painfully hot, washing away the rain and the lingering feeling of Gregor's hands on my shoulders that morning, gripping too tight as he'd asked where I'd been, who I'd talked to, why I was late coming home from work. The gallery where I worked part-time had become my only escape, those few hours where I could pretend my life was normal. I emerged wrapped in the hotel's plush robe, finally allowing myself to assess the damage. A bruise bloomed on my upper arm where he'd grabbed me 3 days ago. Not the first, never anywhere visible. Gregor was careful that way. My phone continued its persistent buzzing. Gregor. I'm worried about you. Gregor. Your boss said you left work early. Are you sick? Gregor. Valentina, answer me. Gregor. I talked to Marco. He said he saw you getting into a taxi with a bag. Ice flooded my veins. Marco. Our neighbor. Gregor's friend. Of course he'd been watching. Gregor. Whatever you're thinking, don't. You know you can't survive without me. The worst part? Some terrible, broken part of me wondered if he was right. I had 60 euros left. No family nearby. Few friends who hadn't slowly drifted away as Gregor isolated me. A part-time job that barely covered my share of rent. But I had something more valuable. I had left. Finally, after months of telling myself tomorrow, next week, when I save enough money, I had actually walked out the door. I turned off my phone, the sudden silence both liberating and terrifying. The hotel room felt surreal in its tranquility. Clean sheets that smelled of lavender. Silence broken only by rain against glass. Safety, however temporary, however expensive. I should have slept. Exhaustion weighed on every limb. Instead, I stood at the window, watching the city breathe below. Somewhere out there, Gregor was searching. I knew him well enough to know he wouldn't simply accept my absence. He'd call my work, my friends, maybe even the police, painting himself as the concerned boyfriend of an unstable woman. By morning, I needed a plan. My grandmother's voice echoed in my memory, thick with her Sicilian accent. Valentina mia, when you feel trapped, remember, even the smallest door can lead to freedom if you're brave enough to walk through it. This hotel room was my door. Tomorrow, I'd figure out where it led. I was just climbing into bed when voices in the hallway made me freeze. Male voices, speaking in rapid Italian too low for me to make out words. My heart hammered as footsteps paused outside my door, a beat of silence. Then they moved on, fading down the corridor. Paranoia, I told myself. Just other guests. This was a hotel. People came and went, but I dragged the chair back under the door handle anyway. Sleep, when it finally came, was fitful and full of dreams. Gregor finding me, Gregor dragging me home, Gregor's voice promising it would never happen again, that he'd change, that I'd made him do this by leaving. I woke with a start to pale morning light filtering through rain-streaked windows. My phone, when I powered it on, showed 23 missed calls, 14 text messages, 3 voicemails I couldn't bring myself to listen to, and 1 message from an unknown number. I know where you are, coming to bring you home where you belong. The phone slipped from my nerveless fingers. He'd found me. Somehow, impossibly, Gregor had found me. I was shoving clothes into my bag with shaking hands when logic finally penetrated panic. How could he know which hotel? Milan had hundreds, unless Marco, the neighbor who'd seen me leave. If Gregor had pressured him, threatened him, Marco might have remembered something. The taxi company. There were only so many that serviced our neighborhood. I had to leave, now, before he arrived. But where would I go with 60 euros and nowhere safe to hide? The hotel phone on the nightstand rang, shrill and unexpected. I stared at it, heart pounding. It rang again. Again. With trembling hands, I lifted the receiver. Signorina Ricci? The receptionist's voice. Professional, but with an undertone I couldn't identify. There's a gentleman in the lobby asking for you. He says he's your boyfriend. He's quite insistent. My voice emerged as barely a whisper. Don't tell him I'm here. Please. A pause. Then quietly, he's already shown me a photograph. He knows you're registered. The room spun. I gripped the edge of the desk to steady myself. I'm calling security, she continued. But Signorina, perhaps you should speak with management. There's a service elevator. 4th floor, east wing. They can help you leave discreetly. I wasn't thinking clearly, operating purely on instinct as I grabbed my bag and fled into the corridor. The service elevator. East wing. My feet carried me on autopilot, sneakers silent on plush carpet. I nearly collided with him. A man emerged from a doorway marked private, impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit despite the early hour. Tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from Carrara marble. His eyes, storm gray and penetrating, fixed on me with an intensity that stopped me cold. You're running, he observed. Not a question. His voice carried the cultured accent of northern Italy, each word precisely placed. I need the service elevator. My voice shook. Please. My ex-boyfriend is downstairs and I know who's downstairs. He stepped aside, gesturing toward the elevator behind him. Come, I hesitated. Everything about this man screamed danger of a different kind than Gregor. Power, control, authority that expected obedience. Voices echoed from the main corridor. Gregor's voice, raised and angry. The decision made itself. I followed the stranger into the elevator. The service elevator descended in silence, broken only by the mechanical hum of cables and my ragged breathing. The man beside me stood with perfect stillness, his presence filling the small space like smoke, invisible but impossible to ignore. Thank you, I managed, for helping me. His mouth curved slightly, though it didn't reach his eyes. I haven't helped you yet, signorina. I've merely postponed the inevitable. The elevator opened onto a corridor I'd never seen. Clearly staff only judging by the industrial flooring and harsh fluorescent lights. He guided me with a hand at the small of my back, proprietary but not forceful, down the hallway to an unmarked door. The office beyond was unexpectedly elegant. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Milan's morning skyline. Leather furniture arranged around a fireplace that crackled with real flames. Bookshelves lined one wall, filled with volumes in Italian, English, and what looked like Russian. Sit. He gestured to a chair near the fire. You're shaking. I hadn't noticed, but he was right. Adrenaline was giving way to shock, leaving me trembling like leaves in wind. He poured amber liquid from a crystal decanter, pressing the glass into my hands. Drink. It will help. It's 10 in the morning, I'm aware. The ghost of amusement touched his features. Think of it as medicinal. The whiskey burned going down, but warmth spread through my chest, steadying my hands. I studied him properly for the first time. Late 30s, with the bearing of someone accustomed to command. His suit was bespoke, his watch understated but undoubtedly expensive. Everything about him spoke of wealth and power. Who are you? I asked. Alessio Lombardi. He settled into the chair opposite mine, movements controlled and deliberate. I own this hotel. Understanding dawned. You're the manager's boss. That's why she called you. Sophia has worked for me for 15 years. She knows when to involve me in delicate situations. His gaze was steady, assessing. Your boyfriend is currently in my lobby, causing a scene. He's shown my staff a photograph. Claimed you're mentally unstable. Threatened to call the police if we don't give him your room number. Shame burned through me. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to bring trouble to your hotel. I'll leave. And go where? The question was mild but pointed. Do you have somewhere safe? I looked away, unable to meet those penetrating eyes. I'll figure something out. With 60 euros and a man who's already tracked you here? He leaned forward slightly. Valentina Ricci, 26, part-time gallery assistant, renting an apartment in the Isola district with Gregor Sokolov. No family in Milan. He paused. Am I missing anything? Blood drained from my face. How do you know all that? It's my business to know who stays in my hotel. His tone suggested this was entirely reasonable, especially when they arrive soaked and frightened in the middle of the night, paying cash for a room they clearly can't afford. That doesn't give you the right to investigate me. No, he agreed, but it gives me the information needed to help you. If you want my help. Why would you help a stranger? Something flickered in his eyes, gone too quickly to interpret. Let's say I don't appreciate men who terrorize women. Bad for business, bad for karma. The irony of his phrasing made me laugh, a sharp, brittle sound. Karma, that's your concern. Among others. He stood, moving to the window with his hands clasped behind his back. Your Gregor is persistent. My security has escorted him out twice. He's threatened legal action. Claimed you stole from him. Implied you're mentally ill. Creative. I'll give him that. He won't stop. The certainty settled over me like a shroud. He never does. He'll wait outside, follow me when I leave, or he'll... I couldn't finish the thought. Alessio turned, the morning light silhouetting his frame. What if you didn't leave? I can't afford another night. I barely afforded last night. I'm not speaking of payment. Alessio returned to his chair, settling with the careful grace of a predator. I'm proposing an arrangement. Warning bells clanged in my mind. I'd heard about arrangements before, whispered stories from other women about wealthy men who offered help that came with strings attached. What kind of arrangement? The hotel is hosting a series of private events over the next 3 weeks. Art exhibitions, charity auctions, corporate gatherings. I need someone who understands art, who can speak intelligently with guests, who won't be intimidated by wealth or status. His gaze held mine. You have a degree in art history from the University of Bologna. You've worked at Galleria Moderna for 2 years. You're exactly what I need. How do you know about my degree? I make it my business to know things. He waved away my concern as if it were smoke. The position includes accommodations here at the hotel, meals, and a salary of 2,000 euros per week. 3 weeks, 6,000 euros total. The amount staggered me. I made barely that much in 3 months at the gallery. Why so much? Because the work demands discretion, professionalism, and the ability to handle difficult personalities. You'll be representing my hotel to some of Milan's most influential people. He paused. And because you need enough money to truly disappear when this is over, if that's what you choose. The honesty disarmed me more than any sweet promises could have. What's the catch? The catch, he said, leaning back in his chair, is that you'll be visible. These events are photographed, covered by society pages. Your Gregor will know you're here. He'll see you thriving while he rages impotently outside. That's not a catch, I said slowly. That's bait. You want to use me to provoke him. I want to demonstrate that he has no power over you anymore. Alessio's voice carried an edge now, something cold and sharp beneath the cultured tone. Men like him trade on fear. They break spirits because broken things don't fight back. But you're not broken, are you, Valentina? I thought of the bruises. The constant anxiety. The way I'd learned to anticipate his moods like reading weather patterns. I feel pretty broken. Feeling broken and being broken are different things. He stood, extending his hand. You got in that taxi. You found this hotel. You're sitting here negotiating terms instead of collapsing into helplessness. That's not broken. That's surviving. His words found cracks in my armor I didn't know existed. I stared at his outstretched hand, knowing this decision would change everything. Working for Alessio Lombardi meant staying visible, staying findable. It meant trusting a stranger who investigated his guests and spoke about karma while his eyes held secrets. But it also meant 3 weeks to plan, to save, to become someone Gregor couldn't recognize. I took his hand. His grip was firm, warm, sealing a bargain I didn't fully understand. Excellent. He released me and moved to his desk, producing a legal document with efficiency that suggested he'd had it prepared before I agreed. Standard employment contract. Room 806 will be yours for the duration. It's a suite, actually. More space than 412. Better view. I'll have your belongings moved up immediately. I don't have much to move. Then it won't take long. He slid the contract across the desk with a pen. Read it carefully. I don't do business with people who sign blindly. I scanned the dense legal language, surprised to find it straightforward. Employment terms, confidentiality clauses, termination conditions. Nothing predatory, nothing that set off alarms. The confidentiality clause, I noted. What exactly am I not supposed to discuss? Guest identities? Conversations you overhear? Business matters you might become aware of? Standard hospitality industry practice? His expression revealed nothing. My clients value their privacy. I signed, each letter of my name feeling like a small rebellion against Gregor's certainty that I'd come crawling back. When do I start? This evening, 6 o'clock. There's a private viewing in the gallery space on the second floor. Contemporary Italian artists. Very exclusive. I'll need you to circulate, engage guests in conversation about the pieces, make connections between potential buyers and the work. He consulted his watch, a gesture I was coming to recognize as habitual. That gives you 8 hours to rest, prepare, and familiarize yourself with the artists we're featuring. I'll need clothes. I glanced down at my jeans and wrinkled jacket. Something appropriate. There's a boutique on the ground floor. Tell them to put whatever you need on my account. He raised a hand before I could protest. Consider it a uniform expense. You can't represent the hotel in sneakers. The morning passed in a blur of surreal luxury. Room 806 was indeed a suite. Sitting room, bedroom, marble bathroom, with a tub large enough to swim in. My pitiful duffel bag looked absurd in the walk-in closet. The boutique proved equally disorienting. The manager, a sleek woman named Carlotta, showed no surprise when I mentioned Signor Lombardi's account. She assembled outfits with ruthless efficiency, cocktail dresses in jewel tones, tailored slacks, silk blouses, heels that made my feet look elegant instead of clumsy. For the viewing tonight, she said, pulling out a midnight blue dress that shimmered like water, this with the Louboutins, understated but impactful. Signor Lombardi appreciates elegance over flash. You dress women for him often? Something flickered across her face. I dress women for the hotel events often. It's not the same thing. But the way she said it made me wonder. Back in the suite, I tried to rest as Alessio had suggested, but sleep remained elusive. My phone, still powered off, felt like a grenade on the nightstand. Eventually, I turned it on, bracing for the inevitable onslaught. 47 missed calls, 32 text messages. The voicemails I still couldn't bring myself to hear. Gregor, I know you're at the Artemisia. The desk won't tell me your room, but I'll wait. Gregor, you can't hide from me. Gregor, I talked to your boss. You're fired, by the way. She doesn't appreciate employees who abandon their shifts. That one made my stomach clench. The gallery had been my sanctuary, my escape, but I couldn't think about that now. Gregor. Valentina, stop this childish game. I forgive you for running. Come out and we'll talk. Gregor, you're making a fool of yourself. Gregor, fine, stay there. See how long you last without me. The final message, sent an hour ago, carried a different tone. Gregor, I'm not leaving Milan without you. You're mine. I deleted every message, blocked his number, and immediately felt both liberated and terrified. Cutting him off felt like cutting a tether in a storm, freedom and danger in equal measure. At 5, I began preparing for the evening. The midnight blue dress fit perfectly, skimming curves I'd forgotten I had under Gregor's constant criticism. The heels added 3 inches, changing my posture, my confidence. Makeup carefully applied to hide the dark circles, the pallor, the fear. The woman in the mirror looked like someone I used to know, someone I might become again. A knock at the door made my pulse spike. Through the peephole, I saw a young man in hotel uniform. Signorina Ricci? Signor Lombardi sent me to escort you to the gallery. The gallery space on the second floor took my breath away. Soaring ceilings, perfect lighting, walls painted in warm neutrals that made the artwork sing. 20 pieces from 10 contemporary Italian artists, each more stunning than the last. I was absorbing a particularly striking abstract when Alessio appeared at my elbow. You look nervous. I haven't done this before, not at this level. You worked at Galleria Moderna for 2 years. You've dealt with collectors, middle-class collectors buying pieces for their living rooms. Not. I gestured vaguely at the gathering crowd visible through the glass doors. Whatever this is the same, just with more zeros. He handed me a glass of champagne I hadn't asked for. Breathe. You know art, they know money. Help them connect the two. What if they ask questions I can't answer? His smile was genuinely amused now. Then be honest. Say you're not sure, but you'll find out. Wealthy people respect authenticity more than they respect pretending expertise you don't have. The doors opened. Guests flowed in like a tide. Women in designer gowns, men in impeccable suits, the subtle scent of expensive perfume and older money. I recognized faces from magazines, from news programs. Milan's elite gathered in Alessio's hotel to sip champagne and consider art. Show time, Alessio murmured. Then louder, approaching a couple examining a sculpture near the entrance. Buonasera. Welcome. May I introduce Valentina Ricci, our art specialist for the evening. The next 2 hours passed in a haze of conversations about technique, symbolism, investment potential. I fell into the rhythm of it, reading people's genuine interest versus social obligation, matching them with pieces that spoke to their sensibilities rather than just their wallets. A silver-haired man in his 60s spent 20 minutes with me discussing a controversial mixed media piece, ultimately deciding to purchase it not despite but because his wife would hate it. A young tech entrepreneur gravitated toward the abstracts, responding to their energy and chaos. An elderly woman with kind eyes wanted something that reminded her of her granddaughter. We found it in a delicate watercolor of olive groves. I was explaining the provenance of a bronze sculpture when I felt it, the prickling awareness of being watched. I turned to find Alessio across the room, engaged in conversation, but with his gaze fixed on me. Something in his expression made my breath catch. Not attraction exactly. Assessment, as if he were re-evaluating a calculation. The moment our eyes met, he looked away, returning his attention to his companion with seamless grace. Signorina, the sculpture's potential buyer, prompted me to continue. I refocused, pushing away the strange flutter Alessio's attention had created. This was work, nothing more. The evening wound down past 11. Guests departed with promises to consider, to return, to be in touch. 3 pieces sold outright. Several more garnered serious interest. Alessio appeared as the last guests filtered out, 2 glasses of wine in hand. You were extraordinary. I was terrified. I know, that's what made it extraordinary. He handed me a glass, gesturing toward a leather sofa positioned to view the remaining artwork. Tell me honestly, did you enjoy it? I sank into the sofa, slipping off the Louboutins with relief. Yes. God help me. Yes. I'd forgotten how much I love talking about art with people who actually care. Gregor didn't appreciate your passion for it? The question should have felt intrusive. Instead, it felt like he was offering me space to speak a truth I'd been carrying alone. Gregor thought art history was a waste of time, a hobby, not a career. He wanted me to study something practical, something that would make money. I took a long sip of wine, which is ironic, coming from a man who works in his father's company and has never had an original thought in his life. You stayed with him anyway. Love makes you stupid. I regretted the words immediately. Too honest, too raw, or what I thought was love. Alessio was quiet for a moment, swirling wine in his glass. Love doesn't make you stupid, Valentina. Fear does. And men like Gregor are very good at making women afraid. The understanding in his voice surprised me. You sound like you know something about it. I know something about control. His expression darkened. About men who use it to compensate for their own inadequacies. Before I could ask what he meant, he stood, offering his hand to help me up. It's late. You did excellent work tonight. Rest tomorrow. The next event is Saturday evening. His hand was warm, calloused in unexpected places for a man in expensive suits. I wondered briefly what put those calluses there before dismissing the thought. Alessio? I stopped him as he moved toward the door. Why are you really helping me? He turned back, and for just a moment, something vulnerable flickered across his features. Maybe I'm tired of watching powerful men destroy everything beautiful they touch. Maybe I want to see what happens when someone fights back. Then he was gone, leaving me alone with half-drunk wine and questions I wasn't sure I wanted answered. The next morning arrived with weak sunlight filtering through gauzy curtains. I woke disoriented, taking several seconds to remember where I was. Not Gregor's apartment, the hotel, my sanctuary, bought with 3 weeks of my life and sealed with Alessio Lombardi's enigmatic assistance. My phone, which I'd foolishly checked before bed, had accumulated 17 new messages from unknown numbers. Gregor, using different phones to circumvent the block. Each message a variation on the same theme. Concern bleeding into accusation, promises bleeding into threats. Unknown. Valentina, please. I'm worried about you. Just let me know you're safe. Unknown. Your mother called me. She's scared. How can you do this to her? Unknown. That hotel owner won't protect you forever. Unknown. I saw you last night. That blue dress. You looked beautiful. You always were beautiful when you listened to me. The last one made my skin crawl. He'd been here. Watching the gallery event through the windows, perhaps. Or maybe he'd slipped inside. Anonymous among the wealthy crowd. I was deleting the messages when a soft knock interrupted. A hotel attendant with breakfast I hadn't ordered. Fresh cornetti, espresso, fruit that looked like art. Compliments of Signor Lombardi, Signorina. He also asked me to give you this. A note, written in decisive handwriting. Your ex-boyfriend attempted to gain access to the hotel at 6 a.m., claiming to be your husband with a room key he'd lost. Security escorted him out. He's been banned from the property. If he continues to harass you, I have resources beyond hotel security. Use them. A.L. Resources beyond hotel security. The phrasing was deliberately vague, but the implication clear. Alessio Lombardi had power that extended beyond the legitimate boundaries of hospitality management. I should have been afraid. Instead, I felt a complicated relief. The day stretched before me, unstructured and strange. For the first time in 18 months, I had nowhere to be. No one demanding my time. No walking on eggshells around Gregor's shifting moods. The freedom felt almost suffocating. I spent the morning exploring the hotel's amenities I'd never imagined using. The rooftop pool, empty in the November chill. The library, stocked with volumes in 6 languages. The small gym where I attempted yoga and gave up after 10 minutes, my body too tense to find any peace in the poses. Eventually, I gravitated back to the gallery space. In daylight, without the crowd, I could study the pieces properly. The controversial mixed-media work the silver-haired man had purchased revealed layers I'd missed in the evening chaos. Bold, violent brushstrokes overlaying delicate pencil sketches. Rage and tenderness fighting for dominance on the same canvas. It's about his mother. I spun to find Alessio standing in the doorway, dressed more casually than I'd seen him. Dark jeans, a charcoal sweater that emphasized the breadth of his shoulders. The artist, he clarified, moving to stand beside me. Luca Mariani. His mother had borderline personality disorder. He says this piece is what it felt like to be loved and destroyed simultaneously. That's heartbreaking. That's honest. He tilted his head, studying the piece with genuine interest. Most people want art to be beautiful. Luca makes art, that's true. We stood in silence for a moment, both contemplating the violent tenderness frozen in paint and ink. I got your note, I said finally. Thank you. For handling Gregor. It's handled for now. He'll try again. Alessio's tone carried the weight of certainty. Men like him don't accept rejection easily. In his mind, this is temporary insanity on your part. He's waiting for you to come to your senses. I'm not going back to him. I know that. You know that. But he doesn't believe it yet. He turned to face me fully. Valentina, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Has he ever hit you? The directness of the question stole my breath. Not exactly. What does not exactly mean? I wrapped my arms around myself. Suddenly cold, despite the gallery's comfortable temperature. He pushes, grabs, leaves bruises sometimes, but always where they won't show. He says it's because he loves me too much, because I make him crazy when I won't listen. Alessio's expression hardened into something dangerous. Show me. What? The bruises. Show me. My instinct was to refuse, to keep this private shame hidden, but something in his voice, not prurient interest but cold, calculated fury, made me pull up the sleeve of my sweater. The bruise on my upper arm had faded from purple to a sickly yellow-green, 4 distinct marks where Gregor's fingers had dug in. Alessio studied it without touching, his jaw tight. How old? 5 days. Before you left. I nodded. He pulled out his phone, snapping several photographs before I could protest. Evidence, in case we need it. For what? For whatever comes next. He pocketed the phone, his expression unreadable. I need you to understand something, Valentina. The work I'm offering you, it's legitimate, but I can offer you protection that isn't. The kind that makes men like Gregor reconsider their priorities. What kind of protection? The kind you don't ask questions about. His gaze held mine. I have connections in this city. People who owe me favors. People who can make it very clear to your ex-boyfriend that continuing to pursue you would be inadvisable. You're talking about threatening him. I'm talking about educating him on the realities of the situation. I should have been horrified. Instead, I felt a dark satisfaction at the thought of Gregor being on the receiving end of fear for once. Is that what you do? I asked, beyond owning hotels. A slight smile. Entirely without humor. I do many things, Valentina. Some of them are even legal. The admission should have sent me running. Instead, it made a strange sense, the way hotel staff deferred to him beyond normal employee respect. The resources he mentioned casually. The overnight investigation into my background. Alessio Lombardi was more than a simple hotel owner, much more. And if I say yes to this, education, I asked carefully, then Gregor learns that you're under my protection, that pursuing you comes with consequences he won't enjoy. He paused. But Valentina, understand, once I involve myself in this way, it's not casual. You become my responsibility. I don't take that lightly. Your responsibility, like I'm a problem to be managed. His expression softened almost imperceptibly, like you're someone I've decided to help. There's a difference. Why? The question burst out before I could stop it. Why me? You don't know me. I'm nobody. Just another woman running from a bad relationship. You're not nobody. His voice carried unexpected intensity. You stood in my gallery last night and made art come alive for people who see everything in terms of investment potential. You left a man who was destroying you, even though leaving meant having nowhere to go. You're surviving when most people would have crumbled. He paused. That's not nobody, Valentina. That's extraordinary. The compliment lodged somewhere behind my ribs, warm and uncomfortable. I wasn't used to being seen this way. As strong rather than difficult, surviving rather than stubborn. I need to think about it, I said finally. Fair enough. He checked his watch, that habitual gesture. I have a meeting. Tomorrow night's event is a corporate gathering. Tech executives, very casual. More about networking than art. Wear something comfortable. And Valentina? He paused at the doorway. Whatever you decide about my offer, the job stands. You don't have to accept one to keep the other. After he left, I sank onto the leather sofa, my mind spinning. 3 days ago, my life had been Gregor's apartment, my part-time gallery job, and carefully managed terror. Now, I was living in a luxury suite, working for a man who admitted to having illegal connections, considering whether to accept protection that came from sources I shouldn't trust. My phone buzzed. Another unknown number. Unknown. I talked to a lawyer. You can't just leave, Valentina. We have a lease together, shared assets. You're stealing from me by taking your things. The audacity of it made me laugh, a sharp sound in the empty gallery. I'd taken one duffel bag of my own clothes. Everything else, furniture, electronics, even the artwork he'd purchased to improve my taste, remained in the apartment. But to Gregor, my leaving was theft. I'd stolen myself from him, the possession he valued most. I was composing a response when better judgment prevailed. Engaging would only give him what he wanted, my attention, my emotional energy, proof that he could still affect me. Instead, I blocked this number too, added a note to my phone to block any unknown numbers automatically, and made a decision. I found Alessio in his office, sitting behind an expansive desk with 2 computer monitors and a view of Milan spreading beneath him like a kingdom. I want your help, I said, without preamble. Whatever you're offering, I want it. He studied me for a long moment. You're sure? No, but I'm sure I don't want to spend the rest of my life afraid of him. If you can make him stop, I want that. He nodded once, decisive. Then consider it done. It will take a day or 2 to arrange. In the meantime, continue with the hotel work. Keep your phone's location services off. Don't go anywhere alone. I feel like I should ask what you're going to do. You should, but you won't. His mouth curved slightly, because you're smarter than that. He was right. I didn't want to know the specifics. Plausible deniability felt safer than complicity. The corporate event tomorrow, he continued, shifting gears smoothly. 75 executives from a German tech firm. They're launching a product in the Italian market. Want to network with local business leaders. Your job is to facilitate conversation, make connections, ensure no one stands alone looking uncomfortable. I thought this was about art. It's about people, Valentina. The art was just the medium last night. Tomorrow, the medium is innovation and opportunity. You'll adapt. His confidence in me felt unearned, but strangely bolstering. What if I can't? Then you'll learn. That's what the 3 weeks are for. Learning what you're capable of when someone isn't constantly telling you you're inadequate. The observation cut close to truths I'd been avoiding. Gregor's voice still echoed in my head, cataloging my flaws, my failures, my inability to function without him. Go, Alessio said, not unkindly. Rest. Read the briefing materials I'll have sent to your room. Tomorrow night you'll be brilliant. I left, unconvinced of the brilliance but willing to try. That evening, I ordered room service, something I'd never imagined doing, and spread the briefing materials across the suite's dining table. Company profiles, executive bios, talking points about the German-Italian business relationship. Halfway through memorizing names, my phone rang from an unknown international number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Valentina, Gregor's voice, tight with suppressed fury. Enough of this game. How did you get this number? I have my ways, just like I have ways of finding you wherever you think you can hide. He paused. I know about your new job, playing dress-up for some hotel owner. Do you think he cares about you? You're a novelty, Valentina. A project. When he's bored, you'll be back on the street where you belong. Don't call me again. I'll call whenever I want. You're my girlfriend. We have a future together. You're just confused right now. Influenced by the wrong people. I was confused, I said, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. For 18 months I was confused. But I'm very clear now. We're done, Gregor. Accept it. I'll never accept it. His voice dropped to something darker. You're mine, Valentina. You'll always be mine. And if I can't have you, I'll make sure no one else does either. I ended the call, my hands shaking. The threat hung in the air like poison. I should have called the police, should have filed a restraining order, should have done all the things rational people did when faced with credible threats. Instead, I called the only number I had memorized. Alessio answered on the first ring. What happened? How did you know something happened? You wouldn't call otherwise. A pause. Tell me. I relayed the conversation. Gregor's threat echoing in my memory. I'm coming up, Alessio said. Don't open the door for anyone else. He arrived within 5 minutes, which meant he'd been somewhere in the hotel. In his office, perhaps, or making his nightly rounds. He listened to the recording I'd had the presence of mind to make, his expression growing colder with each word. "Tomorrow becomes tonight," he said finally. "I'm making the call now." "What call?" "The one that ensures Gregor Sokolov learns the error of his ways." He moved toward the door, then paused. "Pack a bag. Not everything. Just what you'd need for a few days. There's a possibility he might try something desperate in the next 24 hours. I want you somewhere even more secure." "More secure than a hotel suite?" "Yes." He met my gaze. "My home. It's not an imposition. It's a precaution. And Valentina?" His voice softened slightly. "You did the right thing. Calling me. Don't doubt that." After he left, I sat in the elegant suite that had been my haven for 3 days, wondering how I'd arrived at this moment, running from one man's obsession into another man's protection. But Alessio's protection felt different. Dangerous, yes. Mysterious, absolutely. But there was a fundamental respect in how he treated me. Asking rather than demanding, offering rather than taking. I began to pack, choosing practical clothes, comfortable shoes. Through the window, Milan glittered with 1,000 lights, each one a life being lived in ways I couldn't imagine. Somewhere out there, Gregor was planning his next move, certain of his right to reclaim me, and somewhere closer, Alessio was making calls that would change the equation entirely. I was a pawn in a game I didn't fully understand, but for the first time in 18 months, I was a pawn choosing her own moves. That had to count for something. Alessio's home occupied the top 2 floors of a converted industrial building in Porta Romana, accessible only by a private elevator that required both a keycard and fingerprint scan. The security measures should have alarmed me. Instead, they felt comforting after Gregor's threat. "Welcome to my sanctuary," Alessio said as the elevator opened directly into his loft. The space took my breath away. Exposed brick walls, soaring ceilings with original steel beams, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Milan's skyline. But unlike the hotel's calculated elegance, this space felt lived in. Books stacked on every surface, a well-worn leather sofa facing a fireplace, art that was clearly chosen for love rather than investment. "You have a Mariani," I said, recognizing the artist's violent tenderness in a painting above the fireplace. "I have 3. Luca's a friend." Alessio set my bag down, moving through the space with familiar ease. "He painted that one after his mother died. Said it was the first time he could paint her without feeling like she might climb out of the canvas and hurt him." The raw honesty of the statement matched the painting's emotional brutality. I moved closer, studying the layered textures, the way rage and grief competed for dominance. "Your guest room is upstairs," Alessio continued. "Private bathroom, everything you should need. But Valentina..." He turned to face me, his expression serious. "I need to be clear about something. You're safe here, completely safe. My home has security that makes the hotel look like a playground. No one gets in without my knowledge. That includes me." "What do you mean?" "I mean there's a lock on the guest room door. Use it if you want. I won't be offended." His gaze held mine. "I'm not Gregor. I don't take what isn't freely offered." The clarification shouldn't have moved me, but it did. After 18 months of Gregor's possessiveness disguised as love, Alessio's respect for boundaries felt revolutionary. "Thank you," I managed. "Don't thank me yet. You might change your mind when you meet my cat." As if summoned, a massive gray tabby materialized from behind the sofa, regarding me with the disdain only felines can truly master. "That's Dante. He's an asshole, but he's my asshole." Alessio's affection for the cat was evident in his voice. "He'll probably sleep on your bed whether you want him to or not. Fair warning." I laughed, the sound surprising me with its genuineness. "I like cats." "Good, because he already likes you, which is rare. Usually takes him weeks to tolerate new people." Dante patted over, rubbing against my ankles with a purr that sounded like a small engine. I bent to scratch behind his ears, earning an approving rumble. "Traitor," Alessio muttered at the cat, but his smile betrayed his pleasure. The moment felt surreal in its domesticity. Hours ago, Gregor had threatened me. Now I was scratching a cat's ears in a stranger's loft, feeling safer than I had in months. "I should show you the rest of the space before Dante decides you belong to him entirely." Alessio gestured toward the floating staircase that led to the upper level. The guest room was as thoughtfully designed as the rest of the loft, minimalist but comfortable, with its own sitting area and a bathroom that rivaled the hotel suites. A wall of bookshelves held an eclectic collection, philosophy next to pulp fiction, art theory beside science fiction. "I never know what I'll want to read," Alessio explained, catching my surprised examination. "So I just collect everything. There must be thousands of books here. 3,247 last count, though I've acquired a few dozen since then." He moved to the window, gazing out at the city. "Reading is escape, I suppose. A way to live lives that aren't complicated by my own choices." The admission felt unexpectedly personal. I joined him at the window, watching Milan pulse with evening life far below. "Can I ask you something?" I said quietly. You can ask. I may not answer. The hotel. Is that your only business? He was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried careful precision. I own several properties throughout Milan. Hotels, restaurants, a few nightclubs. All legitimate, all profitable. But I also facilitate certain transactions, connections between people who need things and people who can provide them. Legal things? Sometimes. He turned to face me. I exist in gray areas, Valentina. I'm not a saint, but I'm not a monster either. The help I'm offering Gregor, it's not about violence. It's about making him understand that the cost of pursuing you exceeds any possible benefit. How? Through information. His smile was cold. Gregor works for his father's import business, yes? There are aspects of that business that wouldn't survive close scrutiny. Tax irregularities, customs violations, nothing catastrophic but enough to be inconvenient. He'll receive evidence that continuing to harass you means that evidence reaches the appropriate authorities. You're blackmailing him. I'm educating him on consequences. Alessio's expression hardened. He threatened to ensure no one else could have you if he couldn't. That's not love, Valentina. That's ownership. And I don't tolerate men who think they own women. The conviction in his voice made me study him more carefully. This is personal for you, not just me. The principal. Something shifted behind his eyes. My mother spent 20 years with a man who thought he owned her. My father. He was traditional in his views. Women belonged in certain places, behaved certain ways. My mother tried to leave him 3 times. Each time, he convinced her she couldn't survive without him. What happened? She died when I was 17. Heart attack, officially. But I think she died from carrying fear in her chest for 2 decades. His voice remained even, but pain threaded through it. I swore I'd never be like him, and I'd never let men like him win. Understanding dawned, painful and complete. That's why you help. Why you notice when women arrive frightened at your hotel. I notice because I failed to notice soon enough with my mother. He moved away from the window, his posture defensive despite his casual stance. I can't save everyone, but I can save the ones who cross my path. I'm not asking to be saved. I know, that's why I'm helping you. His gaze met mine. You're saving yourself. I'm just providing resources. The distinction mattered more than I could articulate. I wasn't a damsel requiring rescue. I was a woman who'd made the hardest choice and needed support to see it through. So what happens now? I asked. Now you stay here where you're safe. The corporate event tomorrow proceeds as planned. You'll return to the hotel for it, with security present. Gregor receives his education tomorrow afternoon. By tomorrow night, he'll understand that continuing this pursuit is career suicide, and if he doesn't care about his career, then we move to more persuasive measures. Alessio's voice carried an edge that reminded me exactly who I was dealing with. But he will care, Valentina. Men like Gregor are fundamentally selfish. When the cost becomes personal, they fold. I wanted to believe him, but I'd underestimated Gregor's obsession before. Try to rest, Alessio said, moving toward the door. I have some calls to make. Help yourself to anything in the kitchen. Dante will probably join you shortly. He's a shameless beggar. After he left, I explored the room more thoroughly, finding small touches that revealed more about Alessio than any conversation could. Books annotated in the margins with thoughts and questions. A framed photograph of a woman who had to be his mother, her smile warm, but her eyes holding shadows. A collection of international currency, suggesting travels to places I'd only dreamed of visiting. True to Alessio's warning, Dante appeared within minutes, launching himself onto the bed with the presumption of ownership. I lay beside him, scratching his chin while he purred, the normalcy of the moment a balm against the day's chaos. My phone remained mercifully silent, all unknown numbers blocked. But I knew Gregor wouldn't simply disappear. He'd find other ways to reach me, other pressures to apply. I must have dozed, because I woke to the scent of food and Alessio's voice calling from downstairs. Valentina, are you hungry? I descended the floating staircase to find him in the open kitchen, stirring something that smelled like heaven. He'd changed into jeans and a simple black t-shirt, looking younger and more approachable than in his usual suits. I don't cook often, he admitted, but I make an excellent aglio e olio, comfort food. We ate at his massive dining table, Dante supervising from a nearby chair. Conversation flowed easier than I expected. Art, books, the ridiculous politics of Milan's social scene. Alessio was cultured without being pretentious. Well-read without being condescending. You're not what I expected, I said finally. What did you expect? I don't know. Someone more intimidating, I suppose. You own hotels, have mysterious connections, make problems disappear. I can be intimidating when necessary. His smile was wry, but I find it exhausting. Being myself is easier. Who is yourself? He considered this, swirling wine in his glass. Someone who's made peace with being complicated. I do things I'm not proud of, but I sleep well because I draw lines I won't cross. Hurting innocent people is one of those lines. And Gregor? Blackmailing him doesn't count as hurting someone? Gregor is far from innocent. Alessio's voice hardened. He put his hands on you, Valentina. He threatened you. He's trying to hunt you down like your property he owns. Whatever happens to him, he's earned. The fierce protectiveness in his tone made something warm unfurl in my chest. I'd spent so long being told my perceptions were wrong, my reactions excessive, that having someone validate my experience felt revolutionary. Thank you, I said softly, for believing me, for helping. Don't thank me yet. Tomorrow might get complicated. He was right. The next day started quietly enough. I worked in the guest room, memorizing executive bios for the evening event. Alessio left mid-morning for meetings, leaving me with his security code and strict instructions not to open the door for anyone. Around 2, my phone rang from a number I recognized, the gallery where I'd worked. Valentina, Maria, my former boss, sounded uncomfortable. I need to talk to you about something. If this is about Gregor saying I quit, it's about Gregor, yes. He came here this morning, insisted on waiting for you despite me explaining you no longer worked here. Valentina, he became aggressive, started going through the storage room where you kept your personal items. Security had to escort him out. Horror washed through me. Did he take anything? I'm not sure. The storage room is a mess, but Valentina, he left a note. For you. I don't know if I should read it or— Read it, I interrupted, my heart pounding. A pause, then Maria's voice, tight with concern. It says, you can't hide from love. I know where you sleep now. See you tonight. Ice flooded my veins. How could he know about Alessio's loft? Unless— My mind raced back to leaving the hotel last night. The private elevator. The car Alessio had sent. Had Gregor been watching? Followed us? Maria, thank you for calling. I have to go. I ended the call and immediately dialed Alessio. Valentina, what's wrong? Gregor knows where I am. He left a note saying he knows where I sleep, that he'll see me tonight. Silence on the other end. Then, quietly, stay exactly where you are. Lock yourself in the guest room. I'm sending someone I trust to stay with you until I can get there. His name is Marco. Tall, bald, scar above his left eye. Don't open the door for anyone else. Alessio. I'm handling it, Valentina. Trust me. He ended the call, leaving me alone with Fear and Dante, who seemed to sense my distress and pressed against my leg with unusual gentleness. I locked myself in the guest room as instructed, pushing a heavy chair under the door handle for good measure. Through the window, I could see the street below, watching for any sign of Gregor. 20 minutes later, the elevator chimed. I pressed myself against the wall, heart hammering, until I heard Alessio's voice. Valentina, it's me. Marco is with me. You're safe. I removed the chair and opened the door to find Alessio looking grimmer than I'd ever seen him, accompanied by a man matching Marco's description. Imposing, professional, armed. Marco will stay here until this is resolved, Alessio said. You're not going to tonight's event. You're staying here where you're secure. But the job is protecting you, not putting you in front of windows where he might be watching. His voice softened. Valentina, Gregor is escalating. That changes things, changes my approach. What does that mean? It means I'm done playing nice. Something dangerous flickered in his eyes. It means Gregor Sokolov is about to learn what happens when you threaten what's mine. The possessiveness in his phrasing should have alarmed me. Instead, it felt like armor against the world. What are you going to do? Whatever's necessary. He cupped my face gently, his thumb brushing my cheekbone. Trust me? I searched his eyes, finding determination in something else. Genuine concern that had nothing to do with duty or debt. Yes, I whispered. I trust you. His smile was brief but real. Good. Stay with Marco. I'll be back before morning. Then he was gone, and I was left with a silent bodyguard and a cat, waiting for whatever storm Alessio was about to unleash on my behalf. Marco proved to be unexpectedly good company for a man whose job involved the implied threat of violence. He stationed himself in the main living area, alternating between monitoring security feeds on his tablet and reading a battered paperback mystery. You like Camilleri? I asked, recognizing the Italian crime author's work. He looked up, surprised. You know his work? I grew up in Verona. My grandmother loved the Inspector Montalbano series. I settled onto the sofa, Dante immediately claiming my lap. She said Camilleri understood that solving mysteries was really about understanding people. Your grandmother was wise. Marco's expression softened slightly. Mine said something similar, that the world makes sense if you pay attention to why people do things, not just what they do. We fell into comfortable conversation, carefully avoiding the topic of Gregor or why exactly I needed protection. Marco had worked for Alessio for 8 years. He told me, ever since Alessio had helped with a family situation. What kind of situation? The kind where my sister's husband thought his fists solved arguments. Marco's voice remained level, but steel underlay it. Signor Lombardi ensured he understood the error of his ways. My sister and her children are safe now. That kind of debt, you don't repay it, you pay it forward. Another piece of the Alessio puzzle clicked into place. He didn't just help women fleeing abuse. He built a network of people loyal because he'd intervened when others looked away. Is that what this is? I asked. Paying it forward? Maybe. Or maybe the boss sees something in you worth protecting beyond obligation. Marco's knowing look made me flush. He doesn't usually bring people to his home. This loft is sacred space. The fact that you're here says everything. Says what? That you matter to him, more than he's probably admitted to himself yet. Before I could process that observation, Marco's tablet chimed. He studied it, his expression darkening. What is it? Motion sensors on the ground floor. Someone's attempting to access the building. He stood, hand moving to the weapon holstered at his side. Stay here. Lock the guest room door. Don't come out until I tell you. I retreated upstairs as instructed, my heart pounding. Through the guest room window, I had a partial view of the street below. A familiar figure paced near the building's entrance, occasionally looking up at the windows. Gregor, he'd actually come here, had somehow found Alessio's address and was attempting to gain access. My phone rang. Alessio's number. He's here, I said without preamble. Gregor's outside. I know. Marco alerted me. I'm 5 minutes away. His voice carried cold fury. Valentina, listen carefully. He can't get inside. The building's security is military grade, but if he sees you in the window, he'll know he's in the right place. Stay away from the glass. I stepped back into shadow, still watching Gregor's agitated movements below. What are you going to do when you get here? Have a conversation he won't forget. Alessio paused. I need to ask you something. When you left him, did you take any documents? Papers with your name, his name, anything connecting you officially? Just my passport and birth certificate. Why? Because Gregor has been telling people you're engaged, that you have joint accounts, shared property, creating a paper trail that suggests you can't simply leave. His voice tightened. He's building a case for why he has rights to you. The manipulation was so characteristic of Gregor that I almost laughed. We never had joint accounts, never shared property beyond the lease on the apartment. Good. That makes this easier. The evidence I was going to use against him. I'm accelerating the timeline. Tonight, he receives everything. Tax evasion documentation, customs violations, proof that his father's company is built on fraud, along with a very clear message. Leave you alone, or it all goes to the authorities. And if he doesn't believe you'll actually do it, then I'll do it and explain that was his warning. No hesitation, no doubt. I don't bluff, Valentina. Neither does he, apparently. So we're about to discover who wants this more, his obsession with possessing you, or his freedom. Through the window, I watched a sleek black car pull up to the curb. Alessio emerged, followed by 2 men I didn't recognize. They moved with the same efficient purpose as Marco. Trained, prepared, dangerous when necessary. I'm here, Alessio said unnecessarily. Stay on the phone. I want you to hear this. I watched Gregor turn as Alessio approached, watched his body language shift from agitated to defensive. Even from this distance, I could see his surprise at being confronted. Gregor Sokolov. Alessio's voice came through the phone, calm and controlled. We need to talk. Who the hell are you? Gregor's voice, accented and aggressive. This is private property. My property, actually. This building and 4 others on this block. Alessio moved closer, his companions flanking him. You've been harassing Valentina Ricci, making threats, stalking her to multiple locations. That ends tonight. Valentina is my girlfriend. I have every right. You have no rights where she's concerned. The temperature in Alessio's voice dropped several degrees. She left you. She's made clear she wants no contact with you. You've chosen to ignore that, chosen to escalate from harassment to threats. That was a mistake. You don't know what you're talking about. Valentina is confused, influenced by the wrong people. She needs help. She needs you to leave her alone. Alessio's patience seemed to thin. I'm offering you one opportunity to walk away. Stop contacting her. Stop looking for her. Move on with your life. Do that, and the information I have about your family's business practices stays private. Even from my elevated position, I could see Gregor stiffen. What information? Tax fraud, customs evasion, money laundering, enough to interest multiple government agencies, enough to destroy your father's company and send both of you to prison. Alessio's voice remained conversational, making the threat all the more chilling. I'm a businessman, Gregor. I understand cost-benefit analysis. Is your obsession with a woman who doesn't want you worth losing everything else? You're bluffing. You don't have anything. One of Alessio's companions stepped forward, handing Gregor a tablet. Even from my distance, I could see Gregor's face pale as he scrolled through whatever was displayed. That's a small sample, Alessio continued. The full dossier is considerably more damning. It goes to the authorities tomorrow morning unless you convince me otherwise. This is blackmail. This is education. Alessio cut him off. You've built your life on your father's money and connections. Valentina built hers on survival and strength. She doesn't need you. She never did. Accept that truth, walk away, and your life continues. Keep pursuing her, and everything you've taken for granted disappears. Gregor's hands shook as he shoved the tablet back. She's mine. She's her own. For the first time, real anger broke through Alessio's control. That's what you've never understood. People aren't possessions. Women aren't property. Valentina isn't yours, wasn't yours, will never be yours. She's a human being who made a choice to leave you. Accept it. You don't understand. Gregor's voice cracked. I love her. Everything I did because I love her. What you feel isn't love. Alessio's voice gentled slightly, not with sympathy, but with something like pity. Love doesn't require bruises. Love doesn't need threats. What you feel is obsession. Control, fear of losing something you've convinced yourself you own. That's not love, Gregor. That's sickness. Through the phone, I heard Gregor's sharp intake of breath. Then, unexpectedly, he started to cry. Harsh, broken sobs that should have moved me, but only made me feel empty. I can change, he choked out. If she just comes back, I can prove I can change. She doesn't want you to change. She wants you to leave her alone. Alessio's voice remained implacable. You have 24 hours to make your decision. Leave Milan. Leave Valentina alone. And your secrets stay secret. Or stay and face the consequences. How do I know you'll keep your word? Because unlike you, I don't break promises to women. Alessio turned to leave, his companions falling into step. 24 hours, Gregor. Choose wisely. I watched them return to the car. Watched Gregor slump against the building's wall. Watched him finally look defeated. Alessio's voice came through the phone, quieter now. Are you all right? I don't know. My hands trembled. Is it really over? It's over if he chooses to make it over. Come downstairs. Let's talk properly. I found him in the main living area, Marco having discreetly retreated to give us privacy. Alessio had removed his jacket, loosened his tie, the facade of control cracking slightly around the edges. I couldn't find words adequate to what I'd witnessed. You didn't threaten him with violence. Violence would have made him a martyr in his own story, a victim of the cruel world keeping him from his love. Alessio poured himself a drink, offered me one. I declined. Taking away his money, his status, his father's business, that threatens the things he values most, himself and his comfort. You really do understand men like him. I've made it my business to understand them. He settled onto the sofa, exhaustion evident in the way he slumped slightly. My father was one, controlling my mother through money, through social position, through the threat of what losing him would mean. I watched her shrink to fit his expectations until there was nothing left of who she'd been. She stayed for you? She stayed because she believed she had no choice. By the time I was old enough to offer her one, it was too late. She'd forgotten how to imagine anything different. His gaze found mine. That's why I won't let Gregor make you forget. You're not who he tried to convince you to be. You're who you choose to become. The words landed with unexpected weight. For 18 months, I'd been whoever Gregor needed me to be. Quieter, smaller, more compliant. Rediscovering who I actually was felt simultaneously liberating and terrifying. What if I don't know who that is anymore? Then you have 3 weeks to find out. Alessio's smile was gentle. While working for me, living here, being safe, no pressure beyond showing up and being yourself. And if being myself isn't very interesting, his laugh was genuine, warm. Valentina, you walked into my hotel soaked and terrified, yet made it 3 hours before I even knew you were there. You've worked 2 events and made art come alive for people who see everything as transactions. You're learning German technical specifications for tomorrow because you refuse to appear unprepared. You're many things, but uninteresting isn't one of them. The compliment settled somewhere behind my ribs, warm and uncomfortable. I wasn't used to being seen as capable rather than difficult. Thank you, I said quietly. For tonight. For understanding what would actually work against him. For not making me feel weak for needing help. You're not weak, Valentina. You're strategic. There's a difference. He stood, stretching. Get some rest. Tomorrow's event starts at 7. Marco will stay in the guest room downstairs if you need anything. And Valentina? He paused at the base of the stairs. You're safe here. Truly safe. Let yourself believe that. After he left, I remained on the sofa, Dante purring in my lap, Milan glittering beyond the windows. For the first time in months, the fear that had lived in my chest eased slightly. Gregor had looked defeated, broken even. I waited to feel guilty about that, waited for some vestige of the love I'd once felt for him to stir into regret. But all I felt was relief. And maybe, just maybe, the first fragile shoots of hope that life could be different than what I'd resigned myself to accepting. 3 weeks passed in a blur of hotel events, late-night conversations in Alessio's loft, and mornings where I woke without dread for the first time in years. Gregor had left Milan the day after Alessio's ultimatum, according to Marco's discreet surveillance. No final message, no grand gesture, just absence where obsession had been. The relief should have felt complete. Instead, I found myself waiting for the other shoe to drop. "You're doing it again," Alessio observed during breakfast on what would be my final day, expecting disaster. "Can you blame me?" I pushed eggs around my plate, appetite absent. 3 weeks ago, I was running from a man who threatened to destroy me. Now I have 6,000 euros saved and he's just gone? It feels too easy. Nothing about this was easy, Valentina. His voice carried gentle reproach. You chose to leave when leaving was terrifying. You trusted a stranger to help you. You rebuilt yourself piece by piece while working events that terrified you. That's not easy. That's extraordinary. You keep using that word. I met his gaze across the table. Extraordinary. I'm not. I'm just surviving. Surviving is extraordinary when the alternative is easier. He set down his coffee, giving me his full attention. Do you know what I see when I look at you? Someone who refused to disappear, even when a man tried very hard to make her. That's power, Valentina. Real power. The conviction in his voice made something crack open in my chest. Over 3 weeks, Alessio had become not a friend exactly, but something more complicated. My employer, my protector, and increasingly, someone whose opinion mattered more than was wise. What happens now? I asked. Today is my last day. The last event is tonight. Tomorrow I trailed off, realizing I had no plan beyond leaving the safety Alessio had constructed around me. Tomorrow you make choices, he said simply. That's what freedom means. The ability to choose for yourself. And if I don't know what to choose, then you take time to figure it out. The hotel job is over, but... He hesitated, unusual for him. I have a proposition, an actual business one, before you assume otherwise. I'm listening. The events over the past 3 weeks have been more successful than any I've hosted previously. The feedback specifically mentions you. Your knowledge, your ability to make people comfortable, your genuine passion for art and culture. He leaned back, watching my reaction. I want to hire you permanently as my cultural liaison, organizing and hosting events, curating art for my properties, representing my hotels to Milan's cultural elite. The offer stunned me. That's a real job, a career, with a real salary, 3,000 euros monthly, plus bonuses based on event success, full benefits, allowances for professional development. He paused. And housing, if you want it. There's a studio apartment in one of my buildings, smaller than here, but yours. No obligation to accept, no strings attached to the job if you decline. My mind reeled. Financial stability, meaningful work, independence. Why? The question emerged smaller than intended. Why invest in me like this? Because you're good at it. Because Milan needs more people who care about art beyond investment potential. Because, he stopped, something vulnerable flashing across his features. Because I've enjoyed having you around, and I'm selfishly hoping you'll stay. The admission hung between us, weighted with implications neither of us seemed ready to examine. Can I think about it? Take all the time you need. The offer stands regardless. He checked his watch. That habitual gesture. I have meetings until 5. Tonight's event is at 8. The charity auction, our finale. Wear something that makes you feel powerful. After he left, I climbed to the guest room that had been mine for 3 weeks. My belongings, meager when I'd arrived, now included a wardrobe of elegant clothes, books Alessio had recommended, small luxuries I'd purchased with my earnings. Evidence of a life beginning to take shape. I pulled out the midnight blue dress from my first event, the one I'd worn when Gregor had watched from outside. Wearing it tonight felt symbolic somehow, proof that he no longer had the power to make me afraid of being seen. My phone, which had been blissfully quiet since Gregor's departure, vibrated with a message from an unknown number. My stomach clenched before I even looked. Unknown. 3 weeks is a long time to think about mistakes. I've had time to think about mine too. Can we talk? Just once. To end things properly. My hands trembled. Even with a single initial I knew. Gregor. Using yet another number to circumvent my blocks. I should have deleted it immediately. Should have told Alessio, let Marco handle it. Instead, I found myself typing a response. Me. How did you get this number? Unknown. Does it matter? I'm not trying to scare you, Val. I just want closure. 10 minutes. The cafe where we had our first date. Tomorrow, 2 p.m. I promise I'll leave you alone after. The nickname. Val, something he'd called me when things were good, sent an unwelcome pang through me, not of longing, but of mourning for the woman who'd believed in what we had. Me. Why should I trust you? Unknown. Because I'm not the monster you've made me into. I was hurt, angry. I said things I didn't mean. But Valentina, I'm getting help. Real help. A therapist. I'm working on the anger issues. I want you to see that I'm trying to change. The message sounded reasonable, mature even. Everything Gregor's previous communications had lacked, which made it more dangerous, not less. I showed the exchange to Marco when he arrived for evening duty. It's a trap, he said without hesitation. Men like him don't change in 3 weeks. They just get better at manipulation. But what if he's serious? What if I refuse this one conversation and he escalates again? Then we handle it. But Valentina, Marco's expression was grave. The moment you respond, the moment you agree to see him, you're telling him the boundary is negotiable, that if he persists long enough, you'll give in. Is that the message you want to send? He was right. I knew he was right. But some wounded part of me wanted to believe Gregor could change. Because if he couldn't, what did that say about the 18 months I'd spent with him? About my judgment? About my worth? I need to tell Alessio, I said finally. I already did. He's on his way back. Alessio arrived within 20 minutes, his expression thunderous as he read the messages. You're not going, he said flatly. This is textbook abuser behavior. Apologize. Promise change, create situation where he controls the encounter. It's a trap, Valentina. I know that intellectually, but emotionally, I struggled to articulate the tangle of feelings. I need to know I'm making the right choice, that I'm not running from someone who could actually change. People can change, Alessio said, his voice softening slightly, but not in 3 weeks, not without real consequences forcing them to confront themselves. Gregor faced consequences. Losing you, losing his comfortable life in Milan. But he hasn't faced himself. This isn't change, it's strategy. Then let me call his bluff. I'll meet him in a public place with security nearby. 10 minutes, like he asked. If he's really changed, he'll accept my boundaries. If not, I met Alessio's gaze. Then I'll know for certain. No more doubts. Alessio's jaw tightened. For a long moment, he said nothing, clearly warring with the desire to protect me and the recognition that this was my choice to make. I don't like it, he said finally, but I understand it. So here's how this works. You meet him in the hotel cafe, not some random location. Marco and 2 others are at nearby tables. I'm watching from security cameras. At the first sign of aggression, the first raised voice, we intervene, and Valentina, his gaze held mine with intensity that stole my breath. 10 minutes, not a second more. You don't owe him more than that. I nodded, already second-guessing my decision but needing this closure. The charity auction that night was our most successful event yet. I moved through the crowd in my midnight blue dress, facilitating bidding wars, connecting donors with causes, feeling powerful in the way Alessio had suggested. The woman Gregor had diminished felt impossibly distant. Alessio found me near the end of the evening, as the final items sold and champagne flowed freely. You were magnificent tonight, he said, offering me a glass. 3 major donors have asked specifically about working with you on future events. Good practice for the real job. I accepted the champagne, my decision about his offer crystallizing. Yes, by the way, to everything. The job, the apartment. I want to stay. His smile transformed his face. You're sure? Terrified, but sure. The city destroyed me once. I want to see if I can rebuild myself here. You already have. He clinked his glass against mine. But Valentina, about tomorrow, with Gregor. You don't have to do this. You don't owe him anything. I owe myself this, the certainty that I made the right choice. I sipped champagne, gathering courage for what I needed to say. These 3 weeks, working for you, living in your space, it's given me something I haven't had in years. Not safety, though, that too, but belief that I could be someone beyond what Gregor convinced me I was. You always were someone beyond that. Alessio's voice dropped, intimate despite the crowd around us. I just helped you remember. The way he looked at me made my pulse quicken in ways that had nothing to do with fear. Over 3 weeks, something had shifted between us. Employer and employee, protector and protected, but also something more complex. Something neither of us had named. Tomorrow, I said, needing to vocalize the plan to make it real. After I meet Gregor and end this properly, maybe we could. Talk about things that aren't work or safety or practical arrangements. Understanding flickered in his eyes. I'd like that. The next afternoon found me in the hotel cafe, hands wrapped around a cooling latte, watching the entrance for Gregor's arrival. Marco sat 3 tables away, absorbed in his phone but hyper-alert. 2 other security personnel positioned strategically throughout the space. Gregor entered at precisely 2 looking thinner than I remembered, older. He spotted me immediately and approached with careful steps, as if I might bolt. Valentina. My name in his mouth no longer carried power. Thank you for coming. 10 minutes, I said without preamble. You said you wanted closure, so talk. He sat across from me, his hands fidgeting with a sugar packet. I've been thinking a lot about us, about what went wrong. What went wrong is that you thought love meant ownership, that you put your hands on me when you got angry, that you couldn't accept no as an answer. I know, his voice cracked. I know I hurt you. The therapy has helped me see how toxic my behavior was, how I let jealousy and insecurity turn me into someone I hate. 3 weeks of therapy doesn't undo 18 months of abuse. Gregor, I know that too. I'm not asking you to come back. I'm asking you to see that I'm trying, that I'm not the monster you think I am. You're not a monster, I agreed, but you're not safe either, and I deserve safety more than you deserve redemption. His eyes widened, as if he'd never considered my safety as separate from his narrative of heartbreak. So that's it? 3 years together and you just walk away? 18 months, I corrected. And yes, that's it. I'm walking away because staying would destroy me, because love shouldn't hurt, because I finally realized I'm worth more than the version of myself you needed me to be. That Lombardi guy, he did this to you, convinced you you're too good for me. Alessio didn't convince me of anything. He just created space for me to remember what I already knew. Gregor's expression darkened, familiar anger flashing across his features. You're sleeping with him. That's what this is about. What this is about, I said, standing, is that I don't owe you explanations about my life. 10 minutes is up, Gregor. Don't contact me again. Valentina, he stood too, reaching for my arm. Marco was there before his fingers made contact, a wall of muscle between us. The lady said you're done, Marco said quietly. Time to leave. For a moment, I saw Gregor calculate, fight or flight, scene or surrender. Then his shoulders slumped, defeat written across every line of his body. I really am trying to change, he said, voice small. I hope you believe that. I hope you succeed, I replied, meaning it. For your sake and for whoever comes after me. But I won't be collateral damage in your journey to becoming better. I watched him leave, waiting for some surge of emotion, grief, guilt, satisfaction. Instead, I felt only quiet certainty that I'd made the right choice. Alessio appeared at my elbow, having materialized from wherever he'd been monitoring. How do you feel? Free, I said, surprising myself with the truth of it. I needed to see him one more time to know for certain. Now I know. Whatever we had, whatever I thought we had, it's over. Good. He offered his arm. Come on, I have something to show you. He led me to the hotel's rooftop garden, currently empty in the November chill. Milan spread beneath us, a tapestry of ancient and modern, beauty and chaos. I come here when I need perspective, Alessio said. When the weight of everything I've built feels too heavy. The city reminds me there are things bigger than my problems. It's beautiful, I breathed. It is. But he was looking at me, not the view. Valentina, I need to say something, and I need you to know there's no pressure behind it. Your job is yours regardless. Your apartment is yours regardless. But these 3 weeks, having you in my space, in my life, it's reminded me what I've been missing. Not just companionship, but partnership. Someone who challenges me, who isn't intimidated by the complicated parts of who I am. He turned to face me fully. I'm not Gregor. I won't cage you or diminish you, but I would very much like the chance to know you beyond employer and employee, if that's something you might want too. My heart hammered against my ribs. I don't know if I'm ready for another relationship. I'm barely finding myself again. Then we take time. We build friendship first. We let whatever this is develop naturally instead of forcing it. His smile was gentle. I'm a patient man, Valentina, and you're worth waiting for. The honesty of it, the lack of pressure or expectation, made my eyes sting with unexpected tears. I'd like that, I whispered. Time, friendship, see where it goes. Then we have a deal. He extended his hand in an echo of our first agreement 3 weeks ago. I took it, this time knowing exactly what I was choosing. Not safety at any cost, not protection that came with strings, but partnership with someone who saw my worth and wanted to help me see it too. 3 weeks ago, I'd fled to a hotel to hide from a man who claimed to love me. Tonight I stood on a rooftop with a man who'd helped me remember how to love myself. The difference was everything. Did you like the story? Then hit that like button now. Comment below what you thought. I read them all, and share it with that friend who loves a good story. Here at Emma Romance Library, there's a new story every day. Don't miss it. See you soon.